This core, 2 of 30, is of the Dina Formation, so it's Manville in its stratigraphic affinity, and it is from eastern Alberta, more or less east central Alberta. Why did we pull this core? Well, we took it out so we could show rhizoturbation as opposed to bioturbation. And in this core, we have continental trace fossils, mainly trace fossils that are associated to insect larvae. We call these Taenidium, but they go by other names, such as adhesive meniscate backfilled burrows as a physical description. And we have roots or rhizoturbation in this core. And rhizoturbation, you can even see from this scale here, are these vertical fabrics that cut across the core. The term rhizoturbation is a bit of a funny one because, strictly speaking, a rhizome is a horizontal underground stem that sends out both shoots and roots. So rhizoturbation, not quite right. Like, you could definitely call this root turbation, and that might even be better, right? But we call it rhizoturbation, and that name has been used for a long time. Looking closer, you can clearly see what the fossil roots look like here. They're vertical. Quite often vertical features in core that are tubular are trace fossils or plant traces, one or the other. A good question is a plant trace an ichthyofossil? And strictly speaking, the answer is no. That's because ichthyofossils have to be associated to animals, okay? And that's because ichthyofossils are in the code of the International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. So it's not covered in plants. So strictly speaking, we call roots biogenic sedimentary structures. So we have roots throughout this core. They come down from the whiter part, which is probably more alluviated than the lower part, meaning that rain has transposed elements downwards through this material and given it this very immature Paleosol appearance. There's trace fossils in here too, like this, and that trace fossil is related probably to the work of insect larvae. And you can actually see, I mean, probably on the scale of your phone, you won't be able to see, but I'm going to just sketch it in there so you can look on the core, that there's these little menisci in here. And those are the traces of the animal's movement through the sediment as it passes sediment around the larvae and backfills the burrow in behind it. And there's other examples here. I like this one. This one might even be better, where you can actually see there's menisci. And when you can see those menisci, you can be reasonably comfortable calling it Taenidium. That's totally fine. Are Taenidium only the record of insect burrows? Well, not really, but they certainly are the main and most conspicuous burrow made on land by insects. So Taenidiums are very, very commonly associated with insect larvae. Now, I just want to give you a closer look at those menisci, and this is zoomed in a little much, but let's look there. And you can see how subtle these can be, okay? You can see that these menisci can be very difficult to see. And so sometimes they even appear massive. And if this appeared massive, you would just call it planolites or skelethos. But when you can see that it has these menisci in it, you can feel comfortable calling it Taenidium. Now, how would I interpret this rock? Well, it's got roots and it's got bioturbation that can be explained by the activities of insects. So calling this some type of subarily exposed soil forming environment is perfectly reasonable.